Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about character death. So this is a field report from the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition Pokemon World conversion campaign that I am. I don't know what tense to use. Was in, am in. We'll see. Because my player character died. All right. So first of all, let me explain who my player character was. So it's a Pokemon game, so each person plays a Pokemon. So I came in at level 4, and I was a level 4 Phanpy. Now, Phanpy is the elephant Pokemon who evolves into Donphan. And so I was invited into this game, and really felt incredibly fortunate to be invited into this game. Because this is a podium level Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, they have an absolutely amazing game space. It's held in someone's home. So this is, and that's not a small thing. Like my game right now happens in FLGS, right? And really, when you have a home that is dedicated to, like you can go in, no one from the public is there. You can make the jokes you want to make. You can say the things you want to say. You could be yourself. It's really incredibly nice, right? It has an incredibly dedicated dungeon master who's super smart. It has a mixed gender. It's a mixed gender table. It has men and women. It's a mixed gender table. That is not common. Like it's interesting because I know streamers and people who play podium. A lot of people who do play podium level Dungeons and Dragons. Your Dungeons and Dragons. If everything's in a race, if all Dungeons and Dragons are in a race, is yours winning a copper, a silver, or a gold? This is a podium level, Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's really dedicated people. So I was playing a level 4 Phanpy Pokemon, and we were going for a gym badge, and it was going to be a bug type gym, right? And it was a bug type gym. So the gym leader was a very powerful Flygon. And so here's what happened. My Phanpy said to Phanpy's name was Fjorn, Fjorn, and so my Phanpy, who was named Fjorn, my Phanpy said to the gym leader, hey, and the dungeon master had said all gym battles are subdual damage. Right, he said this in my first. So by the way, my 4th level, I was invited into this game. I played one session, had a blast, really liked it, and seemed to gain ground in earning my seat, right, and proving to everybody there that I was worth having at the table. I made the dungeon master think about a few things. I kind of shared the spotlight, but I also spoke up and said some good stuff, and I feel like I had a good night, right? Then the next week that they meet weekly, right? The next week, I was traveling, so I couldn't make it, right? But I was also added onto the Facebook thread, right? And that was really nice. And I was, and I was getting to know people. I was talking to people. Some of the other players reached out to me and gave me suggestions for my character. I was really starting to get to know the players and really enjoy the game, right? So now session 2 comes, and I had been thinking about this, and I'm like, what's the point of subdual damage for gym battles? What, somebody's going to fall unconscious? What's the point of this, right? Like, and the reason why is, I guess I really realize now, like, I really like the death part of Dungeons and Dragons in that I feel it puts stakes on the game, right? And so we are Pokemon, and we are engaging in gym battles, and the Pokemon that we are humans that were turned into Pokemon from because there was this one specific event that turned everybody in the world into Pokemon, right? So we're not traditional trainers from that perspective. We just play one Pokemon, right? So we're not like Ash Ketchum, right? So the structure of the game is different. It's really fascinating, right? So you got this situation, and all of this is coming together. So I said in character, right, and I did not warn the dungeon master. I was like, I like to surprise the dungeon master. I like to surprise the other players. I highly encourage you. Like, one of the best things in life is to be unpredictable, right? Don't don't be the kind of person where everybody knows what you're going to say next. And I've strived, right? I've strived to be the kind of person where not everybody knows what I'm going to say next, right? So like, and so I was like, hey, you know, we're Pokemon. We used to be human, now we're Pokemon. We're doing this gym badge battle because this is a ritual that used to exist for trainers that had Pokemon, but we are the Pokemon. So when we say Pokemon Master, we are mastering ourselves. So I'm saying all this in player character, and I said, you know, Professor Atlantis and gym leader Daniel, who was the Flygon, I was like, I want this to be lethal damage. I want no, you know, and we were using subdual and lethal in the game, right? Just talking about it openly as characters. We could have used some, you know, terms of art or whatever, but I thought it was fine. And I was like, I want there to be stakes, right? Like, this needs to be an arena battle. This isn't a gym battle. We're not training anymore. We're trying to master ourselves, right? We're not training. We're not taking in a collection of Pokemon and throwing out the one we like, and we're not part of it. We are battling ourselves, right? And so let's do it for real. Let's put stakes on the game, right? And so immediately Dungeon Master said, this is a very bad idea. Every single person at the table said, this is a very bad idea, right? And then, so I was warned out of character, and I was warned in character. This is a bad idea, right? And I told them, I said, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Here's the thing. This is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I know Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and the death save is very safe. Lean on it, right? You get 3 chances to save, right? And if any one of you gets over and just pops an orange berry into my mouth, I'm up, right? You don't worry about it. We got this, right? So we go into the battle, right? I have 34 hit points. This Flygon hits me for 68 hit points with 1 hit, right? And I was like, oh man. And then I said, oh, I'm fine, because it's if you take over 50 damage, right? If you take over 50 damage over your in one, and you die by an amount over 50, you are dead permanently. So 68, I'm currently at 25. I'm fine. It's not a 50 point overflow. And he goes, no. If you get hit for your max damage, 2 times your max damage, you're dead. So you are dead with no death save. And I was like, oh my gosh, that math is right. You're right. I'm dead with no death save, right? And I was like shocked. It really shocked me. And here's the thing. I had no intention of dying in this game. And this is pretty wild too. This Dungeon Master had no intention of killing me, even after he allowed the lethal damage battle. And I had to fight in character to get that lethal damage battle. I had to insult the gym leader, Daniel, this Flygon. And so this was 100% on me. But I legit thought I'd be safe, right? But the Dungeon Master warned me. Every player at the table warned me. What was astounding was not only did Phanpy, my Phanpy, get the gym leader to allow this lethal combat, but then I literally convinced every other player character to join me in the first lethal gym badge battle, right? And I couldn't believe it. Around the table, every other player character joined me, and I was like, this is going to work out great. I'm going to be a hero for this. Everybody's going to realize I was right. And it swung around and just hit me hard, right? Like I took the fail, right? Now here's where this lands. I have a problem. My name is Scott Garibay. Hi, I play a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, and I have a problem. I am very attached to player characters, and I already know. I'm 53 years old, right? And I think when you hear people talking about player character death, a lot of times they're 20, 30, 40 years old, right? Death is not a part of their daily thoughts, right? Death is a part of my daily thoughts. I have more years behind me than I have in front of me, right? Death is a boon companion that comes to say hi every now and then, right? Like, now he don't come and take me, but like, I'm 53, right? And death is something I'm beginning to very carefully think about. And one of the things is my greatest human hero, right? My greatest, hero overall is Jesus Christ. But the person who lived on this planet, right, and is now no longer here, that I respect the most is Gary Gygax. I think he speaks from the grave every day, and it's really put a lot of thought into me about legacy. What is my legacy going to be? Who's going to come to my funeral? Who's going to think, right? And so, when did I start thinking about Phanpy, this character, right? It wasn't in session 1. It was a week before that, right? So Phanpy has been in my head and my heart for 3 weeks. And I know a ton of people will be like, it's just a character sheet. It's just a piece of paper. And I can assure you, it is not, right? When I got invited to this game, I pulled out, I'm not kidding, I pulled out 1,000, 2,000, a box filled with about 2,000 Pokemon cards that were from when I played in a Pokemon League that go all the way back when I played in a Pokemon League when my son, who's now, I think we were playing in, oh man, wow, I think we were playing in the early 2000s, right? So like there were cards in here that were 20, 25 years old, right? And I remember pinning a gym badge onto my son in a Toys R Us that doesn't exist anymore. It's an Ozzy's outlet center now, But like, I started thinking about this character 3 weeks ago, and there's been this growing love for this character, and I realize I do have a problem, right? I don't take player characters lightly. The moment I start thinking about them, they are a part of me. They are a part of my identity. They are an identity I have lived in for a short period of time, and I take their deaths very, very seriously. So there are two truths here. The death of this character was no one's responsibility but mine. Whether I should or not is not part of the discussion. I feel deeply sad about this. And this is something I need to unpack for a little while, right? And I know this is strange, right? And I know in the 70s and 80s, we warned people deeply about this. They're like, hey, you cannot mix reality and fantasy, right? And the reality is, I've been blessed with so many things, and Dungeons & Dragons has been such an incredible part of my life. It's not that I'm confusing fantasy for reality, but that I have chosen to make fantasy my reality. And I can tell you right now, there are human beings I deal with that mean less to me than this character does. That's just a fact, right? They're not my friends, right? But there's that, and they're not even my associates. But there are people I need to deal with at some frequency who mean less than this Phanpy did to me, right? And it's not a character. It's notes in a commonplace book. It's a Lego board I built to capture the attribute scores and the hit points and every single skill that Phanpy had. And it's the Pokemon cards that I pulled out to represent all the other player characters and wrote, a sticky note on the back. And these are a collection of objects physically in the world, and there's a set of sensations, emotions, memories that only existed in that Phanpy that now exist in me, right? And so I do need to process this, and it is quite sad making. Am I the only one here? Am I the only, because I hear all the time, especially from OSR allies, that there should be no, OSR runs funnels. They grind player characters for fun. There are people who run West March games, and they're like, death means nothing. I'm just not that kind of player. I just can't let this stuff go easily. I'm curious if I'm the only person here. Have you... the other thing that I'm really interested in, kind of exploring is, am I seeking death at the table to prepare myself for my imminent death? right? For the death I'm hurtling toward. You know, I'm 53. I think I'll die between 73 and 83. But that's not far away from me. I've had more years on this earth than I will have. I'm very confident of that. And am I using the Dungeons and Dragons table to explore death? I think I might be, right? And I don't... There's a lot of questions around that. Really, every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to your actually, every single word of that is my heartfelt confession, right? Like, I really... Dungeons and Dragons, it's not fantasy to me. It is very much a part of my reality, and it is very much a tool I am using to explore where I'm going next, right? And I know where I'm going next. I think the moment of death is something that I might be exploring, because I can't help but think, like, you know, I configured this situation, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful morning.